Good evening. So it's Thursday. It's 9 o'clock,
Oh,
which
you
means
almost
it's
got it wrong there.
I almost did. I know. This is either going to be car crash telly or it's going to be fantastic tonight. Our illustrious leader Mike is away this week. Took his family off to holiday camp. He's hoping to retain his knobbly knees competition win for the last couple of years. So I've stepped up into the hosting chair.
Lauren, are we sure it's knobbly knees, that it's not Miss Butland's 2022?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd say Rian's probably got a better chance of that than Mike, but never mind. How we doing, guys?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just excited that OTAs are kind of pretty much there, and yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. We'll get onto that shortly. But Jamie, you all right?
Oh, I'm not gonna lie, mate, I'm tired. As you guys know, I've recently started a new job, and this is week 4 of the last 5 I've been hotel living. So I'm coming from a hotel up north. I've got 3 weeks of training left, and 2 of those are going to be from hotel. So it's like I'm used to. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to sleep in my own bed. I'm ready to just get back to some normality, because even the Cowboys stuff, as much as I didn't want it to, I just kind of taken the back seat a little bit. So it's nice just to get on and feel normal with you ragamuffins for a little while.
Good. Right, shall we move on to the news and notes then?
Yep. Let me just get the wee introduction video, and we'll do that.
Okay, so the first thing, obviously, thoughts of and Mike McCarthy addressed this in his press conference the other day. Obviously, the thoughts are centred at the moment on the tragedy in Uvalde at the high school. It seems a recurring theme, but this is horrible that 19 people were killed. And you see the emotion in Mike McCarthy. I mean, it was quite a tearful press conference he had. He almost had to stop it at one point. And then you also have the Golden State Warriors coach doing similar when he was interviewed after Game 4 of the Mavericks in Golden State.
That's right.
It's a bit sad.
I don't know if any saw this, but apparently there was one of the parents had a heart attack today, brought on by what happened as well. So there was another death. I just saw it just pop up on my news feed just before I came on.
Do you know, one of the crazy things that I was trying to fathom this morning when we all went out for breakfast, that were the person that's done this is 18-year-old, is technically not legally allowed to buy alcohol, but can go out and buy a gun. It's just crazy to think.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm gonna make too much comments on it, but I will say it's just absolutely devastating. And in today's world, where, like you just kind of mentioned there, Jamie, it's like guy can buy alcohol, but he can buy a gun. That in itself is wrong. It's the same with there's abortion laws out there, but you can still buy a gun and kill people. So that's where I'm drawing the line. I'm just like, I don't know what else to say about it, but
thoughts and prayers with the families and the people who sadly lost their lives for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
In
other news, the NFL and the NFLPA agreed on some new rule changes today regarding injured reserve, practice squads, and the ramp-up period to training camp. So, injured reserve, you can now have 8 players that can be put on short-term IR. The period of IR has now been extended 1 week. So where it was you had to miss 3 games, it's now four games. Players can be brought back for they can go in the IR twice before they're actually canned for the rest of the season. It used to be once. Practice squads have now gone up to 16 players, and much like COVID, you can elevate players on a weekly basis, a maximum of 3 times, and then they've got to stay on the roster, or they've got to clear waivers to get back onto the practice squad. And you're now able to ramp up a bit faster to get into full speed for training camp. So on day 2, you're allowed to train for 90 minutes. Day 3, 105 minutes, and then 2 hours on day 4 and day 5, and then you can bring in the padded practices. So hopefully it helps teams hit the ground running. And especially, obviously, one of the things we mentioned last week is we've got a preseason scrimmage against the Chargers. We also have a preseason scrimmage against the Denver Broncos, so it should be nice and spicy because it'll be the return of Randy Gregory.
Ooh. That's all. I'm going to be very short for words tonight on this show. I think the way how every topic's been popping up right now. I am going to hold my peace regards to Randy Gregory, and that is it.
Yeah. And of course, the big news this week is that OTAs have commenced for the Cowboys. Interestingly, there's been a number of notable exceptions of people training. James Washington, newly signed wide receiver from Pittsburgh, he's been held out of practice this week. It's an unspecified injury, but he's been seen wearing a walking boot. Obviously, that suggests that it's maybe a high ankle sprain or something like that. Jalen Tolbert's been held out as well. He was off training with Britt Brown and his rehab crew. That's a hamstring sprain it's been reported as. Michael Gallup's obviously rehabbing as well. So as a result, Simi Fehoko and TJ Vasher were practicing with the ones opposite CD Lamb. CD Lamb's obviously been reported as saying he's embracing the fact that he is going to be the number one guy this year. He's put a little bit of weight on. Seemingly he's grown an inch as well. I don't quite know how he does that at this time of life, but yeah, as Brian's just also brought up, sadly last week Larry Lacewell passed away, the long-time director of scouting. Obviously he held the job pretty much that Will McClay does now. It was a long time, and obviously he was a mediator between Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones in the early days as well. So obviously has a lot of great stories. Sadly suffered a couple of strokes in 2016 and never quite recovered from that. And if you listen to Mick Shots last week, Mickey Spagnuolo was saying that, it absolutely killed him to not be able to speak and not be able to communicate properly. So we wish all the best to his family and friends.
Yeah, thoughts sort of with the family and that. Just to kind of bring up what you were saying about like Washington and Tolbert and stuff like that. Seriously, whatever bit of a worse start to OTAs can we get where it comes to our most important part is our wide receivers right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, we're already kind of, well, obviously we lost Wilson, we lost Cooper, but now our highest draft pick being Tolbert this year and bringing in Washington free agent already kind of like hindered with undisclosed injuries, would you say?
Well, Tolbert's a hamstring sprain, so that should only be a couple of weeks or a couple of days if nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be too bad. The the Washington one is a bit of a concern. If at best it's a high ankle sprain, and you're probably talking about 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I saw the photo being posted by, is it John Mochetta? I can never pronounce it. I can never pronounce his name. And John, if you're listening, I do apologize, but
I think it's Machota.
Machota. Yeah.
Well, even if any of us if we all got it wrong, John, we're sorry. All right. So please even come by to the show and correct us. But yeah, from looking at the photograph, it's not very promising. Like seeing it heavily, it's a proper like reinforced cast, essentially, nearly. Like when you look at it, it's something that it's to help stabilize whatever it is. It's not right with your foot, your ankle, or lower shin, or whatever. And that there's something not right. So it's a bit of a concern. So yeah, it's not exactly the best start to OTAs for our offense in terms of the wide receiver core.
Yeah. Do you know that? To be fair, would you expect anything different? Like I can't remember the last time the Cowboys ever had a drama-free or injury-free start to a preseason. It's just
it's the Cowboys way. It's the Cowboys way, Jamie.
Find any way to get in the media, isn't it? Good, bad, and the ugly.
As long as they're good to go, for training camp as well, it's better to have it now as well.
That's a good point. Like I've been asked a lot of questions. Is like, oh, who do you think of this? Who do you think of that? And I know we're going to be talking about players that has been really like making some names for themselves in OTAs already, but I'm still going to hold my breath till I see that first preseason game. Then I can make a proper assessment on this, because we're not in the training ground every single day like the coaches are. We can only go by based on their word and based on the reports. But I want to build my own opinion until I just see them in game film or see them through scrimmage video or whatever and that. So until then, it's like I'm going to try and keep it nice and neutral. You know what I mean?
It's scale back, isn't it? And that's the thing. You can't really gauge if it's scale back. And that's no. I always look at kind of training companies more to get them up to the standard of fitness that you would expect and going into, say, a preseason, rather than let's get them in there and be this is going to be the ones, this is going to be the tools. Get them up to speed, get them up to fitness, get the injury run out of the way, get them on the field, and then let's see if they can then turn that good rapport and good feedback they've had off coaches into game time, and that's when it, like you say, it matters.
Yeah. And you won't see a lot coming out of this OTAs as well, because obviously the Cowboys got docked one OTA practice this year for the spectacular catch that they posted on social media last year that CD Lamb made in OTAs, and it was a bit too physical for the NFL's liking, so we got docked in
No fun league. No fun league.
Beat me to it, Paul. But can I just jump in with something there as well, though, Lauren? Just it follows on from what Paul was saying, kind of about the OTAs and the combined scrimmages and stuff like that. And I think it was either Rob or Nick was saying this on Twitter today, is we'll hear stories all the time. And don't believe things are as good as they are in OTAs or as bad as they're being reported. Yeah. Combined scrimmages last year, Connor Williams was dominating Aaron Donald. And look where that ended up. One was the Super Bowl MVP, one didn't get a second contract. I'll leave it at that.
Yep, I would agree with that. Anyway, other noticeable missing pieces. Osa Odigizua was held out. Carlos Watkins was held out. And then, as Joe has mentioned here, Tyron Smith had been training the beginning of the week, but already his back has started tightening up and was held out as a precaution yesterday. So Matt Waletsko was starting at left tackle. We've seen more evidence of Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard being on the field together at the same time. Pollard split out as a wide receiver, obviously, perhaps again using, as we've talked about previously, using him as the Deebo Samuel style.
Yeah, like the sweeps.
Yep.
Yep.
Assuming we don't sign Deebo Samuel after all the meetings that he's had with Cowboys players this week.
I'm
But
sorry.
we'll leave it at that.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna jump in again. I am gonna reiterate the whole Deebo. I'm gonna debunk this Deebo Samuel malarkey that it is. Right. So what? I'm a genuine question to our Cowboys Nation. Right. Yeah, Deebo Samuel is probably San Francisco's best player. Fact. Yes. Right. Well, you could say Kittle as well. They two are pretty much the cornerstones of that San Francisco offense.
Pretty good O-line.
Yeah, pretty good. But what I was going to say is, my point is, it's like when a player has had more drop catches than CD Lamb, why would you want to bring in a player that is more prone to dropping? And more, and it seems to be more of that one type of style of play, like being that sweeping wide receiver coming from the backfield, then going up. He's not like a deep wide receiver. We haven't seen him playing too much in like slot or and it seems to be that same type of one trick pony. And people are saying, "Oh yeah, we should trade him for a first round draft pick." I'm sorry, but you guys are crazy. I am sorry. Enough of that. For concentrating Joel and Tolbert, that's what I'm going to say.
Yep.
Just to touch back on Tyron Smith, I know I just said about getting people up to speed, but it was like Sean Lee. If you wrap him up in cotton wool, do not let him participate in anything that's going to strain him out. Get him in weight room, get him on, I don't know, get him on treadmill, whatever. Get his spins out of it.
Doing yoga.
Put that man in cotton wool, bubble wrap, whatever you want to say, just to make sure he's on the field in week one.
Yep. And then final point from OTA so far is that DJ Dog has said there Marquise Bell's flashing out there. I had a very nice pick six, which
96 yards or something like that.
It was within red zone drills. Mike McCarthy obviously said that he actually stepped out of bounds, but again, this is
of course he did. There had to be a joke in there somehow.
Yeah, but this is probably one of the ones that you file with, as you were saying earlier, things that are reported that OTAs are not always as good as they seem, not always as bad as they seem. So he's flashing out there when it's just shells. It's wait until the pads come on, and if he can follow that up.
I mean, if anything, I know I'm gonna more slightly gonna contradict myself from my previous statement here. Like the reports of the flashes and stuff like that, it is getting me excited to see what he's going to do. Like, if it's going to live up to what the reports are going to say. Well, it's not a contradiction. It's actually kind of more of a follow-up in a way. But it's now that even the talk of Sam Williams as well, people are talking about he's been really impressive as well. So it's right, okay. And you know what I'm like? I'm a big critic of Sam Williams. I always have been. I like to eat humble pie. Like, let me see that first preseason game. Let me see how he gets off his stance. Let me see how Marquise Bell covers, how he targets and tracks. Then I'll make a really good, like, you know what? Okay, we might have an absolute baller right here, So.
Yep. Right, that being the case, will we move on to the positional breakdown?
Yeah,
which
is
going to be tight ends this week. Okay. So obviously, Cowboys are obviously moving on from Blake Jarvin this offseason. Sadly, his hip injury that it required surgery that's consistent with players who have been long-term retired. So doesn't sound like he'll play again, sadly, in the NFL, which is a shame because he was a fairly serviceable player for us. Obviously, it was a step down from Jason Witten. But obviously we do have our starting tight end who's Dalton Schultz. 6'5", 244 pounds, 5th year out of Stanford, 4th round pick in 2018, number 137. Currently serving on a 1-year franchise tender. They have until 15th of July to sign him to a longer term deal. Do you think that's likely to happen, guys?
Short answer. Oh, sorry. On you go, Brian. You go first, mate.
I'm going to say I'm still not sure. I really am. I'm not sure if they're going to sign him long term because he did well in 2020 without Dak there.
Yep.
He's had a prove it year this year in his last season of his rookie deal. He's going to have to prove it again for me. Now, I'm sure the Cowboys are working on this deal, that they're trying to get a multi-year deal done. And I think Schultz wants to stay in Dallas as well. But I'm still not convinced. And for me, it's shades of, there's a bit of Zeke off this, there's a bit of Jalen Smith off this in terms of, are we going to give him a long-term deal and then find out in a year or 2 years' time that it wasn't worth it? And everyone's going to turn around, why do we give him a new deal? Why do we give him a new deal? So I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, his progression has been better as they've gone on, and he has over his Cowboys career, he's played 60 or 65 games. The only 5 games that he didn't play were obviously in his rookie year, and he was actually inactive. Last year he had 101 targets, 78 receptions, which was 3rd amongst NFL tight ends. 808 yards, 6th against NFL for NFL tight ends, and he had 8 touchdowns. He's reported that he's gained about 15 pounds of mass this off season. He's working on the run blocking skills. Obviously, last year in the sort of breakdown period between OTAs and training camp, there was a tight end or tight end university, which was basically all the tight ends of the league got together. Guys like Kittle and Gronkowski, etc. It was a big round table, basically talking about what guys do as drills and training drills, and that was one of the things that Dalton Schultz signalled to last year, that it was very instrumental in some of the things that he was trying to incorporate into last season. Some of it didn't help, and he's obviously identified what he needed to do this off season. So hopefully you're going to see him play out, and obviously it's in his best interest if he balls out this year. The Cowboys don't sign him, he's got a career somewhere else, or Cowboys do sign him. Preferably, if we are going to sign him to a long-term contract, to be honest, I would rather do it now rather than next year when he hits the market.
I was just about to say that, because we don't want to do what we said all last year when it came to Randy Gregory.
Yep.
From week 3, we kept saying, let's get Gregory signed up to a new deal. Let's get him signed up to a new deal nearly every single week, all the way up to the end of the season. And it just didn't happen.
Is he tag 11 million?
11 million, yeah.
Yeah, 11 million, yeah.
Just under 11 million.
So I'm going to say, is he an $11 million player? No, he's not. That's a waste of money. That's no disrespect to him, but how many times in the league are making just north of that? And for the ones that are, look at the production they've had. And
I don't even think Gronk's actually making 11 million this year as well. I think he's actually a lot. I think he's like 8 tops. I think I could be wrong, but we need to double check that with the contracts and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure it's a good substantial couple of millions less than what Dalton's earning.
I get using the franchise tag, but use it on the right player. And this is no disrespect to him, but he's not the right player to use the franchise tag on.
I agree.
Yeah, again, I think our whole off season kind of forced us into that issue of doing that. Like, we were trying to restructure things for certain different players at the same time, and we pulled the trigger too early on Dalton. I think, like, if we waited out what we were going to do with Randy, then we probably would have got Dalton on a longer term deal straight off the bat.
I think what actually forced the Cowboys' hands is that Miami obviously tagged Gesicki. There was another tight end that was tagged as well, and obviously with those two
right,
effectively off the boards, you're basically saying that Dalton Schultz is going to be he was certainly going to be probably a week one candidate for signing on with another team. And then obviously the news came through about Blake Jarvin, and the Cowboys probably having to move on from him, which they ultimately did. So it forced the Cowboys' hands one way or another that you didn't want to see Dalton Schultz leaving at the same time as Blake Jarvin leaving. And then you're left with the guys like Sprinkle, who we'll get onto shortly, and who was it? Sean Mckeon was on last season as well.
Who had a great game against the Raiders last year, a game I witnessed and won a bit of money because of him. Thank you, Sean McKeon.
you look at it the other way though as well. Is that he's playing, call it, give or take a few dollars. He's playing on an 11 million tag this year. What's it going to cost him if you give him a deal? So he's on 11 million now. He's not going to come and then play for 2-3 million for 3-4 years. It's going to cost you north of 6 million, if not more.
I'm going to say,
do you really want to pay him that much money anyway? Even the 6-7 million.
I'm going to say, like, if we're going to get him a long-term contract, he will be looking for like at least 7 to 8 million.
Well, I mean, he's not worth that, but especially for how this offense is spread about.
Mm-hmm. Like, if it's going to be like a 3-year contract, then you're talking about a $24-26 million contract, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way. I don't know. I don't know how I don't know, but it just seems way too steep, especially when there could be that next following year there could be that tight end that we can be all talking about. Like, obviously there's the Kyle Pitts of 2024. You know what I mean, for next year. You know what I mean? There could be something like that. Who knows? The other tight end.
Michael Meyer at Notre Dame.
No, come on, Paul.
So that's the name we have to look out for this year. All right.
Come on, Paul. We drafted the guy we wanted. Give him a couple of years. Yeah,
it's a good Scottish surname, so I'm happy with that.
So we'll move on to the second one that Mike's got listed here, which is Sean McKeon. Obviously, you saw most of him last year. 6'5", 238 pounds. He's a 3-year player out of Michigan. Cowboys signed him as an undrafted rookie free agent in 2020, and he's on the final year of a 3-year deal, costing $899,000 against the cap. Obviously started last season, had a good training camp, injured to begin the season though, and eventually played in 9 games, mostly on special teams, but did record 4 receptions, 27 yards and a score, coming off 6 targets. So,
and the score was against the Raiders.
Yep, which got you your money. Yeah.
Yeah, I made my money. I even told Kelsey this. Like, if anyone doesn't know, Kelsey Charles, our good friend of the show, I even said to her, because I was sitting beside her during the games, like, listen, Sean McKeon's going to score his first touchdown for the Cowboys this game. She's like, really? I was like, watch what happens. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Right, and thank you to William Hill for giving me my money. So I appreciate that.
So from your experience, Paul, do you think he's got a chance to stay on the road this year? Or
Absolutely. Like even just for special teams alone, like I feel as though he can contribute in different aspects, not so much as a tight end role, but is he going to be what your tight end number 2 questionable. I would say like he will be a tight end 3, I think. Like it really depends what's going to happen, what we do with Jake with Ferguson, the next guy we're going to talk about. But I will say is he does have that happy medium of a ball catching style of what Jarvin did have when he was fit. Like he does have a good ability of catching the ball as a tight end. Again, and it seems to be kind of running the currents with most of our tight ends is the run blocking. It's not that great, but it is subject to improve.
Yeah, just looking at his stats since he's doing his thing. I agree. He's going to be more of a special team. He's played 23 games for the Cowboys. He's had 4 receptions for 27 yards. Yeah, he's going to make. If he's going to make the roster, it's going to be a special team. Yeah, can't think of anything.
And not just that, he'll be on his last year. He's on his last year as well, so he'll be wanting to try and get as much game time, try and be more involved. He wants to prove a point. He wants to try and get re-signed or get other teams to notice him. So you will expect him to kind of come out guns blazing.
Yep. We'll just quickly move on to the next guy, which is obviously we'll go with our draft pick of Jake Ferguson, the rookie out of Wisconsin.
I can see Jamie's pretty excited about this one.
Pick number 129. PFF had a grade of him last season of 88.3. He had 307 pass snaps, 207 of them as an inline tight end. 46 receptions off 61 targets, but only recorded 1 drop last year. 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, 9.8 yard average, which is actually it was a low for him. He'd been around about 11 yards a catch the last 2 years prior to that. He's unsigned at the moment. He's the only one of our draft picks that's unsigned. Obviously, that's due to language within the collective bargaining agreement. Third round picks are generally the last picks to be signed. It's all to do with clauses about how they can get out of their contracts after 3 years or whatever. What do we see with this guy? Obviously, Wisconsin are a power running team. From my point of view, the fact he has the skills as a pass catcher, he's obviously not got the stats to prove that at the moment. Obviously, again, he's somebody who's been flashing both in the rookie minicamp and in OTAs so far this week. Mike was talking to Dave Hellman earlier. Says that he needs to get in the weight room a little bit more and work on his bench press, I think. But what do you guys think about him?
Go on, Jay.
He's definitely a project, isn't he? But like you say, the way that Wisconsin play their offense, definitely not going to be a Jason Witten, but he's going to be with them. Like you say, give him a couple of years. He's definitely going to be able to rely on in the run game, but also if you look at his catching stats, and he's very reliable and he's a very trusted target. So yeah, like you say, we might have to just ride the tailcoats of a couple of tight ends, but there's potential there for him to be a tight end one. It's just like you say, just getting bulked up a little bit and getting used to the NFL game. I'm looking forward to this one. This was one of the ones I know mocks are crap sometimes, but I was mocking him all the time. I know Paul was back and forth as well. That you liked this pick, and
I like him. Yep.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's just what can we get out of him year one? Hopefully, it's not one of these where he ends up on the patch squad, because I think if he does, he's going to be snapped up. But yes, he's going to be better on the depth chart probably this year. Time 3, probably see a couple of special teams players. But yeah, give it 2 years, and I think we'll start seeing the Jake Ferguson that we drafted.
Yeah, just to kind of like if there's one thing I could actually like say that I genuinely like, well, I do like Jake Ferguson. I will say that. But if there's something that really stands out for me about Ferguson is a yards after being like catch after
Yards after catch.
After contact. Sorry, yards after
Yep.
contact. He knows how to keep going. Like if he's being tackled on, the feet keep on moving. It's very much like a running back mentality he's got when he's got the ball after contact. He'll keep driving those feet. So that's something I'm actually quite. You know what? It's actually brings a different little bit of a dynamic. So I quite like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to rain on the parade here. Like Jake Ferguson, and Mike did allude to this a lot when we drafted him, said this, and a lot of the draft class, this is about going back to the run game, the power run. Ferguson would be used as a tight blocking tight end.
Yeah.
And Hellman is already saying he needs to be in the gym. That doesn't cut it for me. It really doesn't cut it. It's just, he's a bit of a tweener for me. It reminds me of the Dalton Schultz pick in that, where did he come from? Oh, not Nebraska, Wisconsin, are a power running team. So he should be pro ready. And for the first 2 years of Dalton Schultz's career, I said, this guy is supposed to be pro ready, and he's not. And that's my worry, is that in 2 years' time, we're going to be going, do we know what we have? And it is that Dalton Schultz scenario again.
That's a very fair point.
Who invited Happy Brian on tonight? It's your female, Brian.
Brian makes a really good point there, because I totally agree with that in retrospective, because we're seeing, like, obviously we brought in offensive lineman reinforcements and stuff like that. We're seeing how to utilize Pollard and Zeke more and stuff like that now. And with the type of tight, obviously I don't like personally, like, I do like Ferguson. I do think he could bring something to the team in terms of, like, say, the pass catching side of things. I think for sure. But like you said, like Wisconsin was that power run. You would expect him to be ready, to be having that upper body strength, keeping himself low, like in terms of doing help with the run blocking. So it is a bit of a concern, and I do agree with that.
The one thing I would counter with you for Dalton Schultz, Brian, is Dalton Schultz's first year was also Jason Witten's last year of his second playing career with the Cowboys. So
was Schultz not drafted the day after Witten retired?
So
Witten retired. We drafted Schultz. Then Witten unretired for his second season. Spent his third season at the Raiders and then retired again.
Yeah. So I think you're correct there. So we've always said that one of the good things about Jason Witten is his durability. One of the bad things conversely on that is that he was probably a progress stopper for the guys that we drafted to come in as the number 2 guy, because they weren't getting the time on the field. Jason Witten just wouldn't come off the field.
Rightly so, though.
Rightly so. But I mean, it didn't allow you to. Obviously, we rattled off a list of guys a couple of weeks ago of guys that we'd brought in, and they just never panned out for us. They went off, had successful careers elsewhere. You got the most recent of that would be Jeff Swaim, who's currently with Tennessee. And this is potentially, obviously, again, we're maybe talking about this, that Dalton Schultz is going to be exactly the same. Looking at the roster this year, you don't have Sean Mckeon. Obviously, it was your number 3 last year. You've maybe got Jeremy Sprinkle, who we'll come on to. He was your blocking tight end last year. Yeah. He's on the roster this year for $1 million, just over $1 million. So obviously, you're maybe looking at moving on from him. He's a 6th year out of college, and obviously he originally started with the Commanders. He was a 5th round pick in 2017. Last year, I mean, again, he started out on the practice squad. He was elevated a couple of weeks, obviously maxed out on his elevation status, and obviously got signed to the roster for 3 weeks. And then Jarvin went down and put on IR, which meant that Sprinkle was up for the rest of the time. But he only recorded 3 catches last season, so he literally was brought in as your running blocking tight end. And to be honest, I think it was a subpar year for him as far as blocking goes as well. I mean, as far as PFF are concerned, it was a poor year for him. He'd blocked better at Washington, which is why we'd brought him in. So potentially I can see him being the first of our odd men out. Again, you maybe keep him around as an insurance policy. Obviously, with the new the expanded practice squads, you can put him on the practice squad and bring him up again this year if need be.
Yeah. I want to bring up our good friend DJ Dog, who always comments on the show. Big shout out to you, DJ Dog. You always come up with some great comments. You just said, I really think Schultz was less pro-ready than Ferguson coming into the pros. Tight ends in our offense are required to do a lot. Ferguson will need to develop quickly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the main argument was Dalton Schultz less pro-ready when he first came in? You probably could say yes, because obviously it kind of goes back to that argument about Jason Witten. Like, he was taking more snaps, refusing to come off, and there was less development for Schultz to come out. But if anything, if there's any credit given to Schultz, he completely blossomed when Jarvin went down, and that's unfortunate for Jarvin. But for Schultz, he had no option to completely elevate absolutely everything in a short space of time. So it's an interesting point. I don't know what you guys think.
I'll kind of go back to what I always say about Schultz is that Stanford play pro style offense. They always play pro style. He wasn't a pass catching tight end for Stanford. He was that inline blocker, and I'm not going to take away from the guy. He actually developed into a good pass catching tight end, which has helped obviously with Blake Jarvin being gone effectively for 2 seasons. So it's just a wait and see with me. But I would say anyone who comes out of the Big Ten and anyone who comes out of Stanford should be pro ready. They shouldn't be having to go and put sand in their pants at this stage. They should already have that. But look, maybe I'm being too harsh, and as Jamie says, Happy Brian needs to come back.
Yeah, please, amen to that.
I mean, the one thing I would say is if you actually look at the stats for all these guys, our heaviest tight end is only 252 pounds, and that's Sprinkle. Everybody else is 204. Funnily enough, they're all 6'5", 244 pounds. Mckeon is slightly lighter at 238. So they're all within that same sort of size. Moving on to the guys that are probably looking on the outside in. Obviously, Ian Bunting, 6'7", 255 pounds. Second year out of California, undrafted rookie free agent for us. Currently accounting for 705,000, which is obviously he's the basic minimum for somebody of that age. Practice squad player last year, obviously. I think he was.
How much did you say he earns?
705,000 at the moment. If he lasts that, if he makes it to the roster.
Even still, the idea of that. Like, I would, if I was given the opportunity just to even be on the practice squad for 1 year or anything like that, I'd be like, yes, please. Yes, please.
Yep.
I would I'll be the trash dummy. Thank you.
Well, if you think a practice squad player, the basic minimum for a practice squad player is about 9,400 a week.
I am definitely signing up for
Yep. And obviously, this year's signing in undrafted rookie free agent, we've brought in the much maligned Peyton Hendershot. Obviously has a lot of talent, but there's question marks about him off field. He was arrested in February 2020, I think it was, charged with 4 counts, one of which was criminal trespass. It was an incident involving his ex-girlfriend, so I don't know if it was going back in to try and get some of his possessions or whatever. Obviously, the facts are probably not in the public domain, but the draft the draft profile for him, he was a 4-year starter, and he was a team captain at Indiana. Former basketball player, so he's got the same puts that same athleticism into his roots. Controlled footwork, shows up at the break point. He's a hands catcher, so he's not a case of catching it within the body. Obviously, that gives him a big catch radius as well. But he has small hands for the position, so obviously, again, it's easy to strip the ball from him, perhaps. What do you guys feel about him? Obviously, Jamie, Brian, you've watched a bit of college football. Have you watched any of him, any Indiana games?
Sounds like Rico Gathers.
It does a little bit, yeah.
Personally, not a lot, but again, he's just not one of them that's gonna trying to put this nicer, but I can be blunt sometimes. Doesn't strike fear into anybody, and again, is he going to see the field a lot? Again, is he one of these? It's more on the roster for to fill up spaces on not the practice squad, sorry, on special teams. Like I say, special teams is just as valid, but again, it's not you're not going to see him a lot on the offensive side of the ball, and again, even more so just for the fact that the way that this offense runs, it's very, like you say, it seems to be going back to kind of a lot more centered on the run, and then just with the wide receivers that we've got. We lost Amari Cooper, but CeeDee Lamb's clearly wide receiver 1. Gallup, when he's fit and healthy, he's going to be 2. Then you can argue, can't you, who's going to be 3? Is he going to be tall? But especially with how highly he was drafted, and then Washington, is he probably going to fill that in till just while Talbot finds his feet? So there's not really going to be a lot of use for a tight end. Personally, I can't see any sparks, to be fair.
Yeah.
Maybe he hangs around on the practice squad. I don't know, because Bunting was there all last season on the practice squad with 16, 17 guys available, or did you even say 18 earlier, Lauren? I'm not sure.
No, it's 16, so it's up
16.
from it's up from 12. So you got an extra four roster spots this year.
They'll always carry a tight end, possibly 2, on the practice squad, so maybe that's where you get him, because I can't see them carrying more than 3 guys on the active squad at tight end, which would be Schultz, Ferguson, Sprinkle, Mckeon is your 4th guy, and then it's a straight shootout between Bunting and Hendershot for a practice squad spot. Yep.
I think, as you say, I could actually see it being I could see it being Schultz Ferguson and I'd say Mckeon if nothing else. I think again it comes down to the money side of things, and you know, obviously Sprinkle is a vested veteran. If he's on the roster on the first Monday after cut down, then you've got to actually keep him, or you have to pay him the full salary as well. So he's likely to be a cut at the end of camp, if only to bring him back in after the first week. I think obviously, Jamie, you were talking about where the ball's likely to go first of all with this offense. I think in some respects last year, obviously, Dalton Schultz was the sort of safety blanket for Dak Prescott. Much like you could say that Jason Witten was for Tony Romo. So I could see after CD Lamb and perhaps not having Gallup there for the start of the season, that I think perhaps Dalton Schultz will be your number 2 receiver to begin with. At least in terms of production.
I mean, given the injuries that we're talking about, that effectively Washington has his foot in the boot at the minute, he's a guy who could be cut very, very easily if they needed. Gallup is out. Tolbert, hopefully it's just something muscular and will clear up in time. For me, I think you've nailed it in that Schultz is going to have to be the second receiver on this team and actually be there and make all those catches. And I don't know, it's going to be interesting.
Yep.
Like I said, it's not really the best to start to our off-season program, is it?
Yeah.
Yep. So we've actually got
it's pure dead and gloom this show today, isn't it? Just even thinking about it.
I know we need Happy Brian and Happy Mike back as well, because
yeah.
But we talking about Brian is happy. He's got a whiskey in front of him right now. He's happy.
And it is Scottish.
Oh.
So it's the proper stuff you're drinking tonight, then.
I know.
No, Lord, let's not get into that.
I've told you about my trip to Whiskey Corner in Dublin, where I went round 3 times on the same day. So yeah, just to get the woman that was showing us round to agree. She eventually did, just to get rid of us. But
I would normally say I would have some tequila, but Jamie will probably end up turning away with pure. Oh, no more.
It does not make me happy.
So
sure?
we've actually just flown through the tight ends, and I think this is obviously going to be one of our quickest shows of the year so far. Anybody else want to say anything at the moment?
Nothing I could think of. It's obviously kind of right now with OTAs and stuff like that. It's kind of happening right now, and obviously with the sad news that's going on, what happened in Texas. But other than that, it has been kind of relatively quiet. But at least we are starting to see some football, which is great. Yeah. But I'm kind of more interested to see what the other teams are like, how their OTAs have been doing, who they've been talking about, or that, etc. So it'd be very intriguing to see, and I think that might be something I'll be looking to do for the World's Team show we make this Sunday. So I might be doing something like that. So look into the other teams and where do we think, especially like the team that we all hate the most, the bloody Schmearls. So because just even by what they did in their draft and their off season, you cannot help but think, just out the top of the bat, they're going to be a much better team this year, just from the get go, without
I wouldn't bank on that.
You think so?
I wouldn't on it. They
I
still have a
love that.
QB.
Well, that's
is
true.
not very good.
That's true. Well, when you put it in that perspective, I do agree with you in that one. But I'm definitely more concerned from their defensive front for sure. But also, it's game 5 tonight for the Mavs against Golden State.
It is.
So go Mavs, and I just noticed DJ Doll just commented there. Yes, go Mavs.
Yep.
So can the Mavs? I know this is Dallas Cowboys related, but still it's Dallas related. Go Mavs, and yeah, if we can somehow pull it back to 4-3, that will be the biggest comeback in, I think it's like in any game series ever. It's never been done before.
It's never been done. So
fingers crossed. Come on, Luca.
They're behind the 8 ball. They're behind the 8 ball on it, realistically. And I mean, I think a lot of people were hoping or thinking that it was not hoping, but thinking that it was going to be a sweep. But if nothing else, as RJ was saying on the 750 this week, they're keeping it open so that Top Gun Maverick comes out this weekend as well. So you're possibly just passing from one set of Mavericks to another Maverick, You can blame your boss for that, Paul.
Right. What I'll do is I'll get all the shout outs on the go. So big shout out to Cowboys Experience, who sponsor our podcast. Be sure to go and check them out. They help us. They can help you with likes of game day experiences, game tickets, and a hell of a lot more. So be sure to go and check them out. Be sure to use the code UK Cowboys. As you see, it's always on the screen. And also be sure to go and check out our fellow podcasters and fellow radio shows, friends of the show, from 103.5 The Fan, Hanging with the Boys, Talking the Cowboys, Jobo Sports Report, J-Tuck's Cowboys Fans Only, which is now CFO Sports, Big Game James, etc., etc. Be sure to go and check all these guys out, and for more Cowboys content, you will not be disappointed.
Just before we do get out of here, there might be a special show, maybe half an hour on Tuesday. It's yet to be confirmed, so do keep in touch with us on our social media channels.
Can we get a hint?
Rob Phillips. Yeah, Rob has been supposed to come on with us for the last couple of weeks, but with different things, with OTAs, rookie mini camps, he just hasn't been able to get on with us. So we have penciled it in for Tuesday, but it is subject to change.
All right.
And he's been busy filming a Deep Blue as well. So
I was going to say it's just like a hint, but no, you just revealed it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the great thing with Rob is literally it's I'll be there if I can be there, and no fanfare or anything like that. So he's happy enough. If it was a big guest, which is still being worked on, we'll only give clues out then.
Yeah. Like Brian says, a big shout out to Rob Phillips, man. Guy's an absolute legend. But I think that's us, isn't it, guys?
Yeah. So I think we'll sign off there. So Mike should be back in the chair next week, I think. So I'll pass it on to you guys. Hopefully you have a great week, and we'll see you next week, guys.
Yeah, like Lawrence says, have a good one, guys, and we'll see you maybe Tuesday, but definitely
maybe Tuesday. Great job to Lauren for his first time in the chair tonight.
Yeah. Woohoo!
Well done.
Hopefully it wasn't too much of a car crash, but
no, not at all.
You kept us on track. We're finished at 10. That's as good as we can do.
All right, guys. Catch you later.